up, YouTube?
Welcome back to our part 2 of our Q&A series. We're still going to be going over the housing, the classes, social life, and just random questions that all of you have asked. We have
Victor.
Taylor.
Ryan.
And I'm Kathryn. We talked about Bronco Exchange a bit in our last video, so I wanted to ask all of you, what has been your favorite Bronco Exchange event?
In terms of chaos, either among us or topics, we just started it this past week, and we had our first meeting like yesterday, and it was really chaotic, but it was really fun.
I would say for me, I really liked attending the Bronco Book Club. When I attended, the discussion they actually had about the book they picked out for this month was really interesting. Otherwise, I would say that I really enjoyed the Women in Business series that I think Kathryn held this past month, just because it felt like very unity amongst women, and it was also very informative in terms of the Levy School of Business.
My most recent event was Marvel's tier list. We had a small audience, but I'm glad it was that audience.
And with that being said, we're going to get into our first category, which is going to be housing. And if the question isn't in this part, it's probably going to be in part 1, so make sure to check that out as well. So the first question that we have for today are, what are your room essentials that you might want to recommend people to bring?
I'm a little clean freak, so Clorox are in cleaning supplies. They're also at the front desk if you ask for them.
I think if you're gonna do like a laundry basket, get one with either like a handle or wheels, because otherwise you'll be dragging your dirty laundry across the floor and it's not fun. Otherwise, I would say get like a tea kettle or like just one of those electric kettles that you can take into your room. So if you need hot water, if you want like tea or hot chocolate, you can just do that on your own.
So agree with Taylor. Cup noodles, my go-to food. So having that electric like water boiler is really useful.
The next question is, if you have lived in a residence hall with a communal bathroom, how was it like?
I literally changed my schedule because of communal bathroom. I used to sleep in till noon, but now
It's new fever, my man.
The good thing about communal bathrooms is that you don't really have to clean them. That doesn't mean you should leave them dirty, but like it's not your responsibility to be cleaning the toilet unlike with like suites. So that's a plus. I don't really know. I would just recommend, if you do live in a communal bathroom area, to bring like a shower caddy with a handle so you can bring your stuff to and from your room to the bathroom. How much clothes were you able to bring?
I think when I first started packing in my first year, I planned to have like 2 weeks worth of clothes so that like I didn't have to do laundry every week.
The bed frame fits like 3 suitcases underneath, so that's the maximum I would say. And the closets are kind of small.
I guess we'll move on to the next section for now, and we're gonna be talking about food. So, is it true that there is late nights at Benson?
Oh, I'm gonna answer this one. I'm sorry. Okay, so late nights at Benson have, spring quarter it got a lot better. I will be honest. They stuck to a consistent schedule. Like it was really inconsistent, but I think by the time like all the first years and transfer students come on campus, they kind of worked out all the stuff with like getting back into person and making sure staff at Benson is like there are staff just period. So yeah.
Okay, so the next section we're gonna move on is classes. Do classes fill up fast?
It depends. It really depends on the class. It also depends on your major as well, because I'm a public health science major, so we actually get pre-registration for public health classes that are offered during that quarter. And I think a few other majors in the College of Arts and Science also get pre-registration for specific classes related to that major. So going for those classes, as long as you don't miss that pre-registration like time period, it's usually a breeze. But if you do, then it's difficult because they give that based off like priority.
Yeah. Don't worry if you miss registration. You can always email the professor and ask for permission codes.
This is going to be directed towards Taylor mostly, but is it possible to double major and finish in 4 years?
Oh, yes. I'm double majoring in marketing and psychology. So that's 2 different schools within Santa Clara University. I would just recommend talking to one of the advisors in the Drummond Center, just because they can help you to craft like a viable 4-year plan, just so you're not like doubling up on requirements. There's a lot of like overlap.
So how are finals in college? Does everyone have the same schedule? And if so, can I go home during finals week?
If you go on eCampus, it's in the academics and term information. You can pretty much check out when is your final I've seen people go home and take their finals before.
We're going to talk about just questions that we received about like the social category and social life just overall. So, does Santa Clara have dances or events to dress up to?
Yes.
Yes.
I feel like every quarter there's at least like something you can dress up, maybe more so like in the winter than in the spring versus like the fall quarter. But I know that there is the Rainbow Prom, which happens in the spring quarter, which is hosted by the RRC or the Rainbow Resource Center. So if that's something you're interested in, you can check that out. I also know that a lot of the professional fraternities on campus hold dances, whether that's like in the winter quarter or the spring quarter, and a lot of the multicultural clubs on campus also host their own formal events.
I also recommend to always bring one formal outfit at the very least, just because there is a lot of opportunities on campus, such as career fairs, and even in classes, your professors might ask you to dress up in either business casual or like business attire, so it's important to have one. If not, there are department stores nearby. This one's directed towards Ryan, but the question asks, what is band like at SEU?
Oh, band is a little bit more lax compared to like when I did it back in high school, mainly because like we only rehearse on like one day of the week. Vibes there are a lot more laid back than what you would expect from a university ensemble, mainly because the people there are like, I mean, obviously there are people there to get credit, but there are also people there that just like to do it, you know, for fun.
I just wanted to ask, how does the social life in college compare to how it used to be in high school? For me personally, in high school, I felt like it was a lot more active just because in high school, like even though I was online, I feel like people just wanted to be around people. Whereas in college, I feel like you're more focused on like your future, but that doesn't mean like your social life has to die. So for example, like I continue my social life through clubs that I'm a part of that also have to do with like my career. So I do have like friends, but it's just more oriented towards like where I want to be in the future. For example, like the Women in Business Club. But regardless of that, when you're living in, I mean, for most of you, you're gonna be moving away from home and you're gonna be living with people who your roommate can be your friends, the people across. So it's really important to at least put up boundaries because it's a lifestyle that most of you are probably not exposed to yet. So really taking time for yourself would be my suggestion.
I think that it's a bit of a challenge, mostly because when you want like the social, being social depends on like you and your time, because there isn't like, unlike I guess high school where you have periods of like, oh, you have break in between stuff, like the schedules are not synced at all between most of your peers or like classmates. Or it's kind of on you a little bit to like put yourself out there, join clubs.
I want to say that like as first years, you may feel inclined to like, I don't know, play up your personality or try to like act in a way that isn't like consistent with your actual personality. And I would just kind of advise against that. People can definitely tell when you're being your genuine self and versus like when you're trying to pose to be someone else. I also want to say that like in college, I feel that people aren't as judgmental as they were in high school. Or people embrace everyone here, and so I just want to say that like you don't have to act like not yourself.
Okay, and now we're gonna move over to our last category, which is just like the random questions that we have. So, if any of us have a job during the school year, how do we balance a job and school at the same time? Plus any tips?
Okay, so I had a very busy junior year. Let me just say, like, do not try to follow my example, especially if, like, I don't know, I just did too much. But this past year, I did, like, 3 jobs on top of, like, a full course load. And so I was working, like, 19 plus hours every week just because I needed, like, the money to support my lifestyle. I feel like just staying on top of like your own time management, and I guess like based on the nature of your own course, whether like it's on campus or off campus, sometimes you can do I guess your schoolwork during your shifts, and also learning how to say no to social events because you really need to set your own boundaries.
So the next question we have is, SCU a predominantly white institution?
For this coming year, the actual like student body breakdown, it's actually like 54% like students of color. So it's changing a little bit in terms of like demographics there, but I would say that like coming from Hawaii, which of course is like like one of the most diverse states in the United States, it still was a bit of a culture shock just coming to campus. I don't have as much experience with like predominantly white institutions. And so I would just say that like it really depends on like your own personal background, your own personal experience, but it doesn't have to be that way, if that makes any sense. Your college experience is very much like you build it yourself. So if you do not want to have some experiences, you don't necessarily have to expose yourself to those environments and whatnot. I would definitely say if you're like looking for a community of people who share your identity or identify within your community, I would recommend reaching out to the Multicultural Center. There's like, I want to say 16 clubs which identify with different ethnic backgrounds and different ethnic communities. So start there. I would also recommend reaching out to any CFs in your building that like may share the same sort of identity. Just because I feel like since they're in the residential learning communities, they're one of the first resources that you can reach out to find other people who are like within your own community as well.
Are most people at SCU Catholic/Christian? I would say from experience, even though we are a Catholic institution, I find myself not having those conversations with my classmates or my friends, like often, if at all. Mostly people just like, if they're focused on their religion, they do attend church, there's weekly church, there's church on weekends, and they do that on their own time. But it's not something that personally, like I've been like exposed to a lot, like in conversations.
So this past year I was actually part of Barcata. Sure, you know. Right?
Ooh,
So that is that's the Filipino American Association on campus, and so with campus ministry, they would actually partner with all of the clubs within the Multicultural Center just to celebrate their specific religious holidays. And so for Barcata, it was actually Simbang Gabi, which is like a sort of Christmas celebration, and so they actually hosted and sponsored a dinner for like all of our general members to attend. And they also hosted a Simbang Gabi mass within the Mission Church. It was actually kind of nice. I'm not like, I wouldn't consider myself like a super spiritual or religious person, but it was really nice to just sit in there and like listen to the people sing, you know?
What's the weather like at Santa Clara? Hot. Nice.
I would say 90% sunny days.
So, the second to last question is, how can I be involved on campus and make the most out of my first year? Because specifically for this person, that they're a commuter student.
I had some commuter friends, and they either come to campus to study with us.
I guess the best way for a community student to kind of get to know people on campus is probably through clubs and just joining clubs on campus, whether like it's for fun or it's more on the informational academic side. Those are probably the best ways I feel like you would be able to meet people.
What I would say is, I guess there's two ways. For one way, I would say think of it as high school. Like, you know how sometimes like after school you would like stay and you would hang out with friends, or you would stay to do a sport or stay to do a class. It's kind of the same vibe in college. Like, you don't have to go home as soon as your classes end. We have the library that's open up till really late at night. We have several buildings on campus that are like that. And on top of that, most of the multicultural club meeting times are kind of like later in the day. But for our last question, it's either what were you most surprised coming to Santa Clara University, or what were you most looking forward to?
Start. I feel like whenever you ask someone at Santa Clara University what's like the best part of Santa Clara University, most people, if not all people, will say the people at Santa Clara University, whether that's like their classmates or their teachers, faculty, blah, blah, blah. I feel like, I don't know if it's a California thing, but everyone is really friendly. I remember in my first year when I was walking across campus, maybe like a person that I would say hi to like once, or like I introduced myself to them once, would be like, "Hey Taylor," and I'm like, oh wow, as a first year I felt so famous.
What was I looking forward to? I think Taylor put it best, but like just meeting new people and kind of, I mean, I'm very local, so the environment and like the weather or any of the other factors that most people would find a major draw to, like that's home for me. Like I still feel like I'm somewhat at home. Well, home away from home, kind of. Yeah, okay, whatever.
Well, yeah, like they said, it's a smaller campus, and the thing that surprised me the most was that how much people care about you and how much they want to help you. But like people care about you, and they stepping away from like yeah, with a lot of experience I went through, like it really changed me in a good way.
Yeah, I agree with Victor and kind of what everyone else said. Coming in, I kind of was so excited to get like my career started, just because I was really excited to be in the business school. But what stopped me was like from just focusing solely on myself was actually part of Barcata. It's because like I remember like sometimes like I would like not go to gen meetings, but I remember like getting texts saying like, hey, like why aren't you here, or why aren't you coming? And that speaks on Victor's point that like people really do care about you here, and especially if you do get involved, yeah, you'll find yourself making a lot of new friends, and people who you never thought you'd be friends with are now going to be some of your closest pals. That concludes our second part of our Q&A series, and if you do want more, feel free to reach out. All of these questions were from the SCOL_diaries Instagram, and also some personal ones. So if you want to get your questions answered more frequently, you could head over there.
Feel free to
Bye.
DM us everywhere.
Okay, like and subscribe.